There's not many places you can do it. Another place you can do it is, I don't know if you remember, not last summer, but the summer before, I was in France all summer, and we were right on Lake Geneva, and we were right by a beach on Lake Geneva.
Yeah,
That's like 45 minutes, and you can be at ski slopes.
yeah,
So yeah.
that's true. But you gotta live in Geneva though, and that's like for me, not not it's a city I hate more than any city in the world is Geneva, mate.
Oh, really? Why did you
Um,
dislike that?
so boring and it's so expensive. I remember buying a plate of fish and chips there, it cost me about 80 quid, and it gave me food poisoning. It was like, yeah, it's like if I wanted food poisoning, I didn't want to be spending 80 quid for it. Good Lord.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I really like
yeah,
I like the
Geneva,
South
sorry
French
guys.
border.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I kind of resent it. One of my best mates moved from London to Geneva, and I probably still haven't forgiven Geneva for that
Mm.
because you know what I mean. He's like a good buddy of mine. I don't see him too much anymore because of the facts. But
Mm.
anyway, folks, welcome to Brain Food Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. Even though we have to move around the day. Simply because of time zone issues and what have you, but we thought we needed to bring this back to the 2 p.m. slot in GMT. And because this is going to be one of the, it's basically one of the things I've been looking forward to, one of the shows I've been looking forward to most of all, simply because it's data driven content that we need to be discussing. So, really excited to talk about this. Really excited to run through the data on recruitment productivity. We have data from Ashby and Willem Binance is going to talk us through it. But before we bring all that to play, let us first do some sound checks. Want to make sure everything is okay from audio visual point of view. Again, I'm in a different location, so I'm always concerned about this. But let me know whether you can hear, see me okay, folks. It's kind of a yellow image, I'm afraid to say, in terms of lighting, but that should be all right. All good here, restreaming on LinkedIn. Thank you, Rob. You're a soldier. Rob Walker, always restreaming, come what may. This is what we need from the Brain Fooders. Okay, people seem to be hearing okay. Everyone's hearing fine. Okay, let's get on with the show, folks. Great. Welcome, everybody, to Brain Food Live on Air, and welcome to Adam Gordon, of course. Great to see you, mate. What are we going to talk about? Let's run through the newsletter real quick, and then we bring Willem on. So, did you read the newsletter last week? If so, what was interesting, man?
Yeah, I mean, I can't avoid AI. I think everything was about AI, and so I just want to make a quick comment about this first. And I posted this in the Facebook group earlier today that I really believe we're at the peak of the like hype cycle, and I think that it's gonna take it's going to take longer than a lot of people expect. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that we're going to put it into practice like at scale. I mean, most enterprise companies are not going to be like turning images into videos and using that for recruitment at this point. I think that it's going to take like a couple of years before a lot of the things that we're looking at right now can go mainstream. And it's fun and it's exciting to look at what's going on. And if you're a small organization or you're a particularly agile and innovative organization, then maybe you can put some of these things into practice. But one other thing I just wanted to mention about the subject is it's not going to level the playing field, right? It is not something where like we all start making use of this and then everybody's brilliant at recruitment. That's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is those with ultimate mastery are going to really pull ahead of those who aren't. So it's actually going to increase the delta between those that do recruitment well and those that do not do recruitment well. I have no idea whether anybody's following me or whether it's Hung that is frozen. Please post in the comments if you can still hear me or if I'm absolutely gone. He did say he might have to go. He did say his internet might be a little bit dodgy. Right. Okay. So it is him. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Yeah. And also, thank you, Andrea. Does anybody else think I'm talking nonsense or that I am making sense? Because um, genuinely, yeah, laggards and rockets. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. Um, it's just it's gonna just in the same way that like 100% like top mastery around how to do talent pipelining and top mastery around how to do employer branding and deliver candidate experience. That really sets one company apart from another. And it's going to be exactly the same with generative AI. So he actually did warn me that I might have to end up hosting this show. I haven't done it for about a year. But anyway, let me just quickly, while Hung's still not here, talk about two other things that are in a couple of things that were in the newsletter. So I really enjoyed the post about the CEO who had said, WTF, a developer's altered his appearance on the interview with me and got all of his answers from ChatGPT. I really do think that that was probably not true. Because the call to action on that post was, by the way, we're hiring. And when you click through to the link, it's a company that is a generative AI hacking business, trying to put things in place to really kind of, create innovation. It was around DevOps, I think is effectively what it was to do with. But people looking at that post are potentially the people that are interested in working in engineering in this area and therefore interested in the job. I think it was probably genius recruitment marketing rather than somebody actually turned up and changed their face for an interview. I'm just not sure why they would do that. But anyway, it's worth taking a look at. I'm sorry, I don't have the link to it. On this sort of same subject, I know that there was an article in the newsletter about ByteDance's OmniHuman, which takes images and turns them into videos. And I thought it was really quite an exciting use case. But again, I feel like many people, you've got to be ultra creative to really make that work well. And I think it's going to be quite difficult. Let's talk about the Hung's survey. 67% of respondents in the survey thought that more than 30% of job applications in 2025 are going to be significantly assisted by AI. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I feel like it will be, and I don't know what the answer is around, like, should we be really trying to assess for this? And should we be trying to find out who's using AI for their applications and who's not? I also wonder if we actually should be really praising people for using generative AI. But the biggest problem I can see in this area is if everybody's using AI, everybody's CV looks the same, everybody's application and answer to questions and things like that looks the same. How do you wade through a sea of sameness? That's probably one of the biggest challenges. I'm going to finish this segment by talking quickly about, did you hear any of that? I've got no idea, but thank goodness you're back, because I was about to start trying to bring people on screen.
I'm going to do it now because this, obviously the Wi-Fi here is less than optimal. So yeah, well done on keeping this show on the road. But let's get Willem on before, because I think if you're on, Willem's on, basically it doesn't matter if I'm off.
Okay. Let me just quickly do the talk about the last thing that I wanted to mention from the newsletter, which I really, really enjoyed. And that was LinkedIn's Future of Recruiting report for 2025. So the thing that one of the summary items for me was to do with the benefits and then challenges and concerns of generative AI from talent acquisition professionals. I saw 70% of TA professionals said that increasing hiring efficiency was going to be a big benefit from generative AI. The thing that stands out for me about that is, what do the other 30% think? They honestly, they don't think it's going to create benefits in hiring efficiency. I mean, much as I said, it's going to take a long time for some of these really creative things to come into play, like right across the board. I mean, you can create efficiency now. My 8-year-old can create efficiencies in talent acquisition using generative AI. So I'm wondering what the other 30%, think is the opportunity.
Looks like Hung is gone again.
He's gone again.
At least you're not alone anymore.
Yeah, I know. I feel so much better now. Okay, Willem, give us a quick introduction to you. First of all, tell us about you and your background, and then let's get on to talking about the summary from the report and like what are the things that you found. And yeah, give us a quick intro to you for anybody that doesn't know you. You've been on here a few times, but
yeah. I've been here on a few times, but still, hi everyone who hasn't met me yet. I am on the Ashby team. We are a all-in-one applicant tracking system, and we also run trend reports. Basically, we have a lot of data, and we try to aggregate them in fully so we can tell a story about a certain topic. And this time, what we're going to discuss is actually the Recruiter Trends Productivity Report, which is a updated report. So we also we've shipped this the first time in 2023, I think, and we've just revamped it in 2025. So we do that. Obviously, oh, am I still here?
You're not on the screen, but I can still hear you.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. Let me retry.
You want to leave and join again?
Yeah, well, I'll just do it like that. I'll just go into the trend reports.
Chloe, the tech is not teching today.
The tech is not teching.
No.
Anyway, if you want to see more trend reports, so we've got, I'm going to discuss the Recruiter Productivity Report today, but we also have on coordination, on offer acceptance rates, CMPS. So all of this not behind paywalls, just really for you to consume and drive some metrics from, which is obviously always good in TA. Cool. I think to keep it a little bit, I think let's keep it high fidelity. I think we should not go into the text, but I think just the views that we have are always interesting to speak about. Just so you know, this analyzes 31 million applications over 95K jobs from January 2021 till 2024. So it's a huge data set, and obviously it's always growing because we're growing also so quickly. But it is high level, right? So we try to zoom in on things. But for instance, I'm always very interested in the US versus Europe data set. We don't have that yet, but I can, if there are asks, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or here on the chat, and I'm happy to ask our data engineers to go in a little bit deeper. All right, so let's start with the first one. The applications per hire tripled. So I think that is quite interesting. We had in 2021 almost 7 hires from a recruiter, and it went down a little bit, but the applications obviously increased over that time. So this basically is, in my opinion, due to the crunch in the market and AI/remote work, everything that has happened over the last 4 years, allowing people to do more applications. And yeah, I think this is just, and there's also a poll, right? What will drive the needle for recruiter productivity? I think it is all of those things. But for instance, for me in Ashby, it's the tooling that will help you work with these increased volumes, right? So what we have, for instance, is a AI assisted application review, which allows you to set some credentials, what are you looking for in resumes, and then we help you make sure that you signal the right people first. So this one is very interesting. If we scroll down a little bit, we actually
sorry, Willem, can I just ask a question about this? So
yeah.
I mean, I think that ease of application, one-click apply, and easy apply, and generative AI, and things like that. Are there more? There's presumably a lot more people who are looking for jobs, because a lot of people sadly have been made redundant over the last few years. It's been pretty brutal in the white collar world. Would that also be an element of it?
Yeah, that for sure. Obviously, if we take that, I think it's pretty visible here. Started going up into here is basically where the crunch happened, right? And then it starts going up. Yeah. So yeah, that has something to do with it. But also, I think just people being able to apply more. we get a lot of like similar questions answered on our application forms just for our jobs at Ashby, like the hires that we do ourselves, which has AI generated content, and we now screen for AI generated content on application forms with AI.
Tell us,
So it's
tell us in the chat. Tell us in the chat. Are you getting more applications than you were this time 6 months ago and this time 12 months ago? What do you think? I think I'm certainly getting more people contacting me saying, "Hey, look, are you hiring?" So yeah, Andrea's a yes.
Yeah, and it's reduced team sizes, right? Like I think that is the interesting thing, is that the teams are so much smaller now. But we also have had more help, right? Like if you think about the interview intelligence tools, ATS is getting more advanced, I guess. So I think it's just, yeah, it's evening out everything.
Okay, great, very interesting.
This one is then the average hire per recruiter. If you look at business and technical roles, so business is everything kind of like from customer service to operations, et cetera, and technical is kind of like the data engineering, et cetera. I would expect more of a difference here in terms of the amount of hires, but it's actually quite similar. So yeah, it's remained quite the same. Obviously, could be because it's just Ashby data. Like we obviously allow people to hire quickly, and it doesn't really matter in which data segment you are. But what is interesting is that we interview way more folks. So if we scroll down a little bit more, like we interview way more, like 40% more applicants in 2024 than in 2021. And that is, and I would love to hear kind of like, we think it's mostly because of quality of hire, kind of like was hiring at all costs. 2021, kind of like you didn't really have pipeline. And then now, obviously, it changed to, way more. I think people are they want to evaluate folks better and see if they're the right fit for that. So I'm curious if this is also something that the crowd here feels, is that their interviewing volume has gone up way more.
Yeah, and Hung's put a couple of good points in here around, like, is it because managers are being more choosy? There's an abundance mindset, and they can get every box ticked if they want now, because, as Gwen said, hiring rates are at recession levels and we're all drowning in applicants. So, these two things create certainly dynamic shifts in the way that we approach this. So I'm not surprised that we're interviewing more people. We've got more and better choices. There is a problem coming up, though, of course, and that is that certainly even in recruiting, I can see a lot of people who are in jobs that they could have done 10 years ago. They're doing jobs because there's been less opportunities, and people are taking things that are one level or two levels below where they could be operating, and of course, when things change again, there's going to be a lot of movement there.
Yeah, and it is just a very interesting. I find it just super interesting that we just interview way more, and then obviously we have the tools now also to do more, right? I think that's also the increase here as well. Like maybe it feels like we're not doing more because of the tooling that we have. And then I think I'm not sure how much time I have, but I found, like, obviously you can read this report yourself.
Yeah, we got another 5 minutes or so. Let's give us a couple more of the big highlights.
Yeah, so I think interview hours per hire is interesting. Like I had a discussion with someone on LinkedIn when I posted this a month ago, kind of like that. Technical roles take more interview hours than business roles, and the person I had the conversation with, said like, oh, for me it's kind of like inverted. I feel that business roles take way more interviews to hire folks because the engineers that we hire, it's kind of like a set system. So I would love to hear kind of like how folks talk about it. Like the data is clear in Ashby, kind of like there's just way more interview hours spent on technical roles than on business roles. But I found that pretty interesting. Also a tech company, so could also be that things are different per company.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, this is not really like customer support have the fewest interview hours. I think that's that's not really alarming or I don't think that's a major disclose here. So what I do think is decreased there's a big decrease in folks getting an actual interview. So where we used to interview almost everybody because I think the pipelines were so shallow, now we're dropping that quite quick, and especially on the technical front, like we're really thinking about our time, like how are we going to spend our time, and who gets a chance to actually do this interview. So yeah, just you see all those metrics kind of like work together, and there's just that 2022 moment kind of like changed everything, and we'll see how that goes in 2025. I'm excited for seeing the metrics in a year.
I mean, we're hearing horror stories of people, getting one interview for every 100 applications they make and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. It's really, really, really tough. Courtney's made a good point, which is that restricted budget has led to our hiring managers being hesitant to take a chance on hires or developing them, so want to find the perfect candidate. I wonder if that's led to, have we got anything in here, Willem, around like time to fill? Because I'd be interested to know if that's actually changed at all. It may well be that hasn't got faster because of the addition. It's got longer, Hunk says.
Yeah, we mostly have like this one, kind of like how many hours people spend on interviews, or like basically on interviewing folks. Here's the time to fill metric.
Yeah,
it's the time to hire metric, so not the time to fill, but like gets close.
But that's gone up, is it? Or just talk us through what's the results there say.
So basically, I think it's been quite static, and like 70% of the technical roles were hired within 60 days, and business roles like within 50 days or less. So I think just over the time it basically keeps quite similar, but it basically flattens out here, right? So the amount of jobs kind of like get filled quickly, and then the longer it takes, basically roles don't get filled. That's kind of like that's pretty normal. I just think the time to fill here, if we think about that, we like do you see? It looks like it's kind of like decreasing a little bit since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I can attest to that. And if you think about kind of like Ashby hiring, kind of like the hiring we do for our own company, like the pipelines have been higher quality. It's also maybe because our brand is getting better and kind of like we're more known. So it also depends really where you were in 2022 and where you are in 2024 as a business, right? Like it's kind of like impossible to take this as like a single thing. But like at large, time to fill and time to hire are kind of like dropping for business and technical, kind of like still in 2024. And it all comes from inbound. That's also quite interesting. Kind of like inbound has, and this kind of like relates to, I think, just having more applications. Then recruiters obviously being bombarded with more applications means, you can just take it from inbound. And, if you see kind of like agency job boards is kind of like declining. Mm-hmm. There's also a huge, like 40% aid of hires comes from sources, sourcing, referrals, and internal transfer. So I think that is also something that still happens quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Nathan's made a point that I think many of us will identify with, which is no matter what tools you use, you've still got the same hiring managers in your organization. And I think, a lot of people will appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think this is more quality of hire. Like what I really like is we have a quality of hire survey in Ashby. Kind of like you can send a survey to your hiring team after the hire has been made. And then I've seen teams kind of like using this. They look at the quality of hire from their sources, and they see that, for instance, for applied, the quality of hire is just lower. They can do some more scrutiny on like, different interview plans for different sources. I've even had a customer who saw that referrals actually had a lower quality of hire. And then in Ashby, we also are able to prognose how many hires we'll probably make from a certain source because of historical pass rates. and also put that under scrutiny to make sure that the referral tactics were different. So I think you can use those kind of things. If you can combine all this data with your internal data, that's just I think the chef's kiss moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like basically,
okay,
very interesting trend report, and we're gonna ship another one in 4 months. So I hope to discuss that next time with you.
Yeah, very interesting. Couple of questions about the survey respondents. Like where are they? Are they mainly USA, mainly Europe, a bit of both? Are they other places?
Yeah, so basically this all ASHME data, our divide is kind of like 60% US, 30% Europe, and then 10% rest of world.
Yeah.
So basically we have a pretty, still quite even. I am trying to kind of like make these more Europe and US, because I think that there is just a very big divide in some of the use cases. So yeah, I'm hounding my data team to give me those metrics, and then I'm happy to post about that. Maybe get that featured on the newsletter.
Okay, Ms. has made an observation here, which says the key message is advertise less and source more. Might be an interesting way of doing things at this point. And yeah, I'd be interested to know, again, people in the chat, like, do you find that you're doing more talent, like direct sourcing, or do you find that you're continuing to advertise? And like, what's the difference in the tactics that you're deploying this year, if any? Willem, do we still have you with us? Because we can't see.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I can't see you anymore. No, I'm here.
No, can't see you. So I've asked Hung to bring our guests on, Andy and Andrea and a couple of other people as well, who I'm looking forward to talking to. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you. Give us a quick introduction for anybody that doesn't know you. You've been on here very regularly, so I can't imagine there's many people that don't. But yeah, please give us a quick introduction to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Marston. I'm the TA director for EMEA at Nutanix, which is a software company.
If I was being really intrusive, I would be asking you, how many rooms do you actually have in your house? Because every single time you come on here, you're in a different room. So I think you've got like a very, very big mansion that you probably live in West London.
I'm not. I'm in the same room. It's just I've probably just moved it away from the chaos that's in the corner.
Oh, you're definitely.
And I'm realizing there's chaos behind me. Oh no, that's my old place. That's yeah. I am in. No, this is a flat in London, and I no longer have a music studio. That was never mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alexa, great to see you. Thank you for joining. Give us a quick introduction to you.
Hi, Adam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name's Alexa. I lead the talent acquisition team at Numa, which is a Berlin-based hospitality startup. What we offer is digitally enabled accommodations, which is a perfect blend of hotel quality as well as apartment comfort, with a focus on the digital experience for the guests. And we're in 37 European cities and 12 European countries. Super happy.
And the origination of your accent is what?
Complicated.
Yes, I thought it would be. It sounds like it might be a bit of a mixture.
I know. I'm from Manchester, UK, but living in Berlin. I've been in Berlin for the past nearly 9 years, but I studied up in Glasgow in Strathclyde, and I've lived in Toronto. So it's a combination of lots of things right now.
Yeah, I also went to Strathclyde.
Did you?
Yes, I did, but probably a long time before you. Andy, great to see you. Give us an introduction.
Thanks, team. I just, as one of my colleagues has pinged who's watching, we're a collective of A's and AMs here, which is deeply impressive. So I head up talent acquisition at Chainlink Labs. So we are the predominant builder on the Chainlink platform, so Web3 and blockchain space, which for those of you who are kind of nascent to that sector, is the technology behind connecting traditional finance and decentralized finance, but also specifically is where decentralization lives. So major player in that space.
Great. Okay, let's get on with, first of all, comments on Ashby's research. And Willem's not on screen, but Willem is still here. So Willem, just shout out whenever there's a gap if you've got want to jump in. So let's start with you, Andrea. You were first on screen. Like, any comments about what we've just been learning about and the trends that you can see on there?
Yeah, look, there's loads of things going on in that report, aren't there? And I know a few people have been asking about, what is it time to fill or is it time to hire? And I'd love Willem to actually clarify that, because I think that's always a bit of an issue for people trying to understand, what does this actually mean and how does this compare with what we've got in our current companies. But for me, the big things that keep coming out of this is, yes, there's that sea of sameness. You talk about that. And I think that's at the heart of what's going on here. I think when we're seeing CVs all look the same, that's why more people are being interviewed, because we can't actually select purely based on the CV. So then that opens up a whole other story. That, what have we got to do? Do we get rid of the CV? Do we start looking at, well, how else can we assess people while still giving a great candidate experience? I personally don't believe it's then we should just go and source and miss out applications. I think that is a path to less diversity as well, because we're going to drive a lot of bias through that. So I think we need to really look hard at our interview processes, our recruitment processes, and start refining that, rather than just adding more bodies to be assessing this sea of sameness.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Andrea. And we can't get 700 applications for every job and give everybody 25 minutes to expose their soul. So how do we give us any answers in the chat? If you've got an answer to this in the chat, please post it in there. How are you dealing with this? Are all the applications and CVs that you're getting looking all the same? Alexa, what do you think? On that specific subject, but also more generally on the information that we got from Willem and from Ashby.
Yeah. Similar to what Andrea said, a lot of information there. It would be good to have the breakdown. It's really hard to just bucket them into business and tech, because within each of them also you've got your own individual clusters which have their own unique time to hire or difficulty, or versus how easy are they. So I think it should be broken down a bit more granular, in terms of insights. And I also agree that we should look at our processes, but not only our processes, but our people. Who do we have on the TA team versus who do we have internally, looking at the hiring team, looking at, team cultures, what's going to work, stage of the company, what level of ambiguity, for example, is needed. Can they manage with that? What level of speed is needed? So it's looking a bit more holistically, process, people, expectation, what we're looking to bring on board.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, Andy?
I think one thing that stands out for me, and it's maybe a general comment, but we have this use of technology that a lot of us are embracing, a lot of us can't, and that was clear in the chat. But the reality is we have a world where we have tooling that is supposed to be enabling and helping, but the reality is creating just a sea of work. And on the other side of this, we have humanity, and that is the psychology of dealing with people, the psychology of being a candidate, the psychology of being a hiring manager. When I think about something like this, I tend to try and think, rather than about us as professionals, I think about the conversation I have with my friends. And my friends who are job seeking are not applying for jobs because they have an assumption they're not going to get a job that is as good as their job today. On the other hand, the ones who are hiring have a very simple theory, which I think Hung talked about in the chat, which is everyone they interview, there must be someone better. And I don't think they mean better. I think what's happening here is, and we saw this with some of the report, is the consolidation of more into less. As in, I've got one headcount for you now when you used to have two, and therefore I'm merging a bunch of skills. And what I am willing to do is I'm willing to step away from talent in order to wait for a rounder candidate who has more breadth. That becomes really hard from a systems perspective, because on the one hand, you have the sift play. I'm going through application after application after application. There's not much I don't like about this application, so I'm going to create crappy experience for candidates because I can't really explain why you're a no. On the other hand, I'm then going to go to sourcing because I'm trying to find this unicorn element that someone's told me exists, and I think probably does exist, but I don't exactly know how to identify it because it's not It's not word searching. And I think a lot of what you see in that data is telling us about a system that is just congested across every single company and user, that's trying to work out how the technology helps enables and doesn't just create more background noise.
Yeah, very good points. And I like the way you finished with the phrase background noise, because I'm going to compare it to a graphic equalizer. So if you want to make a certain noise, you've got to like level the bass up a bit, you got to put the treble up a bit, whatever it might be. In every single employer, you're going to apply slightly different techniques and slightly different amounts of the different things that you're doing, the tactics and things that you're applying to it, according to a whole variety of different factors. So I don't think people can sit here and go, okay, I listened to what Alexa said, that's what I'm going to do, and copy that, because it's completely different in each organization and every industry. And Jacob has made an interesting point here for sure, which is that the answer to the masses of CVs and interviews is to use, this might sound simplistic, but use AI to qualify through skill-based questioning. Andrea's shaking her head. Why are you shaking your head?
I'd love it to be that simple. Honestly, I would. But every AI tool that I have seen so far is not giving everything that we need on this. There's huge bias that's fed into any of these assessments. We can't rely on it. We can't even rely on it to cut down on the numbers at this point. We still need that human interaction. And you talked about, AI will actually help. What was it about the laggards and the rockets? Someone said, love that comment. Because, was it Andy? Well done, Andy.
Oh no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Sorry.
Andy's going, I never said anything like that.
Confused face. Sorry, forget it.
But the problem is, right, if you've got you can use AI to help for sure, but it can't even do that first cut, because then you lose all those left field candidates. You lose the interesting ones that are going to be about hiring for potential, the ones that are going to come in and add something different. If we're relying on AI to do the cookie cutter approach, we just get the same thing coming through all the time. And that's, again, we lose our diversity. And I'm talking about cognitive diversity, not some kind of checkbox exercise. So the human element of a recruiter, that's what makes up those really great recruiters. The ones that are coming in and they say, look, trust me on this one. This is a great candidate that you have to see. AI is not giving us any of those yet.
Yeah, okay. So actually, it was Jacob who said laggards and rockets, and also Jacob's asking how so, because PostNL did show that it is possible. PostNL's one, as I said, like every organization is different, and like just because one company can do it doesn't mean another company that might look the same actually can do it, because there's so many different elements to it. Alexa, Andy, comments on the subject, like how do we deal with this kind of volume?
Bring it back to the kickoff, bring it back to the beginning of the search, what you're looking for. Really take the time. I know kickoff is like one of the oldest things that we use in talent acquisition, but spend that time, don't skip on it. Spend that 30 minutes or 45 minutes with your hiring manager, really understands what's needed, go to the market. When you get that kind of volume coming in, to the ATS, if you have the option to use certain filtering options, you could potentially use that. That could help as well. But it's also about managing it. If you're seeing it's too much, pause it, see if you can go through them first and then reopen the role.
Couldn't agree more. The kickoff is absolutely skipped. We've got, in a lot of teams today, there was 50 recruiters this time last year. There's now 36 recruiters expected to do the same job. And these qualitative things are getting skipped. And I hear it from people every single day. And that is an oldie but a goodie for sure. Andy, any further comments on that before we move on to a couple of other subjects?
No, I think we've covered everything. I would just say to your latter point, which is the qualitative piece is really important. The more you get aligned up front, the more likely you are to have fewer mistakes. I also think the other thing with this is not just the volume, it's the speed, which is if you are trying to solve this problem in the first 5 days the role is open, and you kind of force yourself into that if your application rate is super high, you're kind of going against the grain of making a more considered opinion later or reviewing over a period of time when you maybe get more quality in those CVs or whatever it might be. I think just quickly on Jacob's point, I think we will get to a direction where we can get closer to what Andrew is saying. But at the moment, you can't tease out the question of have you got this skill if it's not necessarily in a CV for really niche roles. I think in that volume play place, there are some great pieces of evidence around success. But I can't imagine a world for, say, niche software engineering skills where this is going to play out effectively today. And also, I think, don't forget about the engagement side. There are folks who don't want to have this decision made or and decision is maybe the wrong word. There'll be some comments in the chat about this now. But the idea of the AI just making the decision over a human who someone can influence. Think about your LinkedIn box that tells you, I've made an application. I want to talk to you because you're head of recruitment. And the amount of times you go back and go, I'm not across this role. I don't know this role. I can't give you that interview. But it's because people are trying to influence as a candidate to open the door for themselves in a different way to what they put in that text on the CV.
Absolutely. Okay, so just wanted to draw some spotlight on a couple of the comments in the chat here, of which there is a lot of chat. Johannes said, in response to you specifically, Andrea, that a recruiter is also biased, and I mean this is correct. Probably not as much as a typical hiring manager, in my view or my experience. But I mean, this is true. There are certain reasons to remove human decision making out of processes potentially. Matt has also made another very interesting point, I think, which is that there's many wonderful AI point solutions out there. So why are we looking at AI as an all-in-one solution? It's just not. That's not what it is. It's not a thing. We don't just go, right, put AI on top of it. I'd like to, I mean, the newsletter was absolutely full of generative AI related things. So let's come on to that subject a bit more broadly than just like screening applicants and screening CVs. Andrea, again, starting with you, like what are some of the things that we need to be thinking about when it comes to, there's some people at PostNL, for example, in Jacob's point, who are using generative AI instead of recruiters for pretty much everything by the looks of things. But then there are like, what's your comments on the subject overall, where we are in February 2025?
On AI?
Yeah.
I like tech, okay, and I keep playing with AI pieces, and I absolutely see it as essential as part of a talent advisor's role. We should all be using it, but it is that enabler. It is an add-on. It's taking away some of the more basic things, but I think, and sometimes it can question your own judgment. Yeah, of course, people are talking about recruiters are biased. Yeah, of course they are. We're all biased, but so it's good to have that check and balance. But someone described AI, treat it like an intern. So it's something that can be really useful to help you with something, but it doesn't mean that you take everything it says as 100% accurate or knowing the full story, but it can give you a good chunk of what you might need. And then it's about the refinement and the knowledge and the nuance and the general understanding of all the context around it that you can add as a human. That's where the value is right now. So absolutely part of our roles, can't ignore it. Just keep your head, maybe, is probably my answer to it.
So I think that's a really great point. Treat it like an intern. And I do feel like whether it's an intern or whether it's like your manager or some SVP in the business, you don't necessarily listen to everything they say and take it all on board and do it all. You got to form opinions based on like a mixture of people's ideas and inputs. So a lot of elements of AI you may need to treat with the same type of probity. Alexa?
I think with AI, what we need to look at it as is it's not going away, but it's going to empower the recruiters or our profession in a way, not empower or help us become more efficient. So for example, bring it back to the kickoff. You've done the kickoff. It can help you like pulling out the specific questions, skill-based questions if you want. So that's one point that it can help you. It can help you with mapping out your, let's say, if you wanted to update your templates, that could be something that is done. So kind of automating some of these steps with that. But what we need to understand is that that human element is never going to be removed. It's important for recruitment, because it's with the human element that you can create those moments that matter as well for the candidate journey and candidate experience. So I think it's there, it's going to be with us, but let's think of it as if we're going to gain efficiencies, and it's just going to empower. It's an enablement for recruiters.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Yasmin's commented, I mean, this is pretty sad but true. When ChatGPT was new, it assumed women couldn't be doctors, and we also experience we all saw examples of people going onto like the image builders and saying, create an image of a CEO, create an image of a boardroom, and it was all white men. It was all white middle-aged men. So yeah, there does seem to have been some good development since then, but still treat with caution. Andy, again, we're going to come on to some slightly more generalist things in a minute, but finally from you, like on generative AI in particular, like any additional comments to what Andrea and Alexa have covered?
Yeah, I just a slightly different take, which for me, and I think we're seeing this a bit in the chat, which is, as an industry, I think we're very good at understanding like plug and play a lot of the time. So we want to have a hub, normally the ATS, and then we're trying to work out what the best tools are that can plug and play into it. I actually think a lot of the tools that we're already plugging in, which are in many cases fantastic, will actually have zero use case within 5 years, 3 years time. Yeah. Because the general standard of AI will mean that somebody who has a similar basic service, your Google Suite, Microsoft Suite, whatever it is, will have plugged a lot of this in. And it will become that element of it being an assistant or whatever else people want to call it. So when I think about the value of Gen AI, I think about a couple of things. One is trying to make decisions a bit about you've said about that are anchored in where AI was 6, 12, 18 months ago is risky, particularly if people aren't learning and training models and being upskilled. And then the space where I see this being most important is where, from a productivity perspective, it's not about can you screen more candidates, can you do more sourcing. For me, it's about where can you create more meaningful time impact as a recruiter, a sourcer, a cord, whatever it might be. And so it's actually about the application of the thing that solves your problem that's much more important than just embedding a tool, which is going to be very different. Like, I work in a super niche world. So I want to see, our sourcing team is trying to work out how they can get to places they couldn't get to before, to identify skills that didn't exist a couple of years ago, but maybe are built on top of other skills people have. That's very different to trying to analyze, large data volumes. But the flip side is we've all got, and I think Jacob and a couple of other people mentioned this in the chat, we do all have huge reams of data. So I think about things like, where's the pain for a lot of people on this call? Maybe you're having to approve recs loads of the time, or you're having to approve compensation loads of the time. And the reality is you probably make the same decision 95% of the time. So how do you train something to make those decisions for you more quickly, and then have a checkbox at the end of it to give you all of that time back, but also be consistent, rather than looking at point solutions that sort of are allegedly solving problems that someone's selling us that we have?
Yeah, look, from a leadership perspective, I think this is a really important point. Like, nobody's buying solution, or they shouldn't be buying solutions because they are AI solutions. You should be buying solutions or making use of solutions because they're solving a problem that you've already got. So, I mean, I think there is a place for learning and becoming enlightened with, actually, I didn't realize I had that problem, but broadly it is, what challenge do I want to fix? And I was on a panel discussion yesterday, and the outcome, everybody was in agreement that it doesn't matter if it's an AI solution or it's something completely different. If you've got a problem, work out how to fix it. So let's talk now about, we've got 10 minutes left. Let's talk about, like, beyond the influx of applications we're all getting and beyond like specific kind of generative AI. Let's talk about what else is happening in 2025 as TA leaders. Like, what are you focused on? What's important to you? Andy, you've kind of like had to kind of fill in little gaps after Andrea and Alexa have already covered the meat of the issue so far. So let's start with you this time. Yeah. What's top of the agenda?
What's top of the agenda? I think for me this year and for the team, it's a lot about the quality of partnership with our hiring community. And so, I think one of the interesting things about what we do, and I'm probably going to get slammed for this in the chat or have people nodding and agreeing, is like, whatever way we look at it, people tend to end up judging by numbers very, very quickly. It's either the volume of people we hired, the cost of those hires, or the speed of those hires. I think it's been a lot of talk about quality of hire over the last few years. No one necessarily still has anything that is super helpful in explaining that. But if I think about the primary goal that we have as recruiting teams and as part of people teams, it frankly is to serve a business in delivering on its business goals. Now, they can be wildly different for people on this call, because it can be literally about propping up a business with having headcount in buildings to do some types of work. Sometimes it can be about accelerating things through having niche skills that you need to maybe ship a product or some such. But for me, that's an education piece of saying, having done things really foundationally solidly well over a period of time, how quickly can everyone in this team explain why we're doing what we're doing and what it is in service of? I.e., kind of, you've got your mission as an organization all the way over here, you've got your strategy, and then you've got what you're executing. And in a startup, and a fast-paced one at that, having people being able to understand that better, rather than seeing things through the prism of, oh, I hired that role, so my job is done, or I've got this role, so my job is to fill this role. So we, as an example, we've got much closer to workforce planning this year for the first time, and it's been really eye-opening. We did a session on it yesterday, and the team was saying, oh, now I understand why that role, whenever I get it, is really important, because I now understand the context of it in both the shape of the team it supports, but also the leadership's purpose and how other people are growing. And so for me, it's a different year in that sense. And I think it's hard for recruiting folks, because that is a lot less tangible. Much harder to get to the end of the week and say I had a good week or a bad week, because you don't have the numbers to tell you. It's more about feedback and an executive perspective.
In terms of partnership with the hiring community, a slightly controversial question. I hear more and more discussion about the concept of hiring manager self-service, and that they're going to be doing more themselves within their teams. Is this a future that you also visualize? Do you think that this is happening? Is it going to be happening? Any comments?
Yes, absolutely. Like we've done some of that, and I've been part of seeing that happen before. I think it's good for a couple of reasons. One is, if you are a hiring manager and you can self-serve and build the right team while protecting the things that are important to your business, quality, diversity, the pipeline, authenticity, great. That is the fastest way to do it. And why put another layer of inefficiency in between it? What I tend to see is the opposite, which is people do it for a period of time, and then they're like, oh God, I had no idea how awful your job was. Like, my LinkedIn inbox is full. How do you stop these people contacting me? I didn't know what you people did. Could you take it back now? And I think that's a validation point sometimes for our world, but it's not a great one. And so there's something in that around how to help facilitate the goodness of it, while also, on our side, helping to explain it better and be more than validation for taking pain away.
One of the big downsides of working in such a visible professional kind of discipline is everybody thinks they understand it, because everyone's turned up for an interview as a candidate, right? So they think that most of our job is sending some in-mails and then turning up for a chat. And it's a little bit different to that. Okay, great, good points. Right, Alexa, like, what's top of your agenda? What's the most important things you're going to be looking to do more of, start, or get rid of in 2025?
So we're looking at quality of hire. And for us, the quality of hire means, we've created a baseline, because I know that's been a hard part in terms of understanding the metrics. For us, we're looking at, being with the organization past 6 months. That's the best baseline that we've established right now. Of course, as time goes by, we'll look at other metrics, but as a base, we wanted to look at that. And similar to what Andy mentioned, is just really making sure that TA partnership with the business is happening, to understand, okay, what is the need? why is this need being created? So when we do interact with the candidates and bring the people on board, we know that they are in the right position, for the right stage of the company as well. We're still building, so we're potentially going to be also expanding to new markets as well. So for that reason, it is important that, we aim to get it right too.
Yeah.
One comment I wanted to mention, because with regards to the hiring managers managing recruitment themselves, I think not with this organization, but somewhere in a previous one, I remember we had Enterprise LinkedIn and everybody was excited and like everybody got a seat, and it sounded like a great solution first and it worked for the initial few weeks, but then all of a sudden that engagement drops. Candidates or prospects are potentially waiting for a response. So that wasn't very successful. So I always will caution around that, in terms of 100% involvement or managing the process.
Yeah, certainly. So on your first point, quality of hire was listed as the #1 priority for 2025 from the RL 100s survey or whatever the research they did was from their members. And so I'm not surprised it's like a big focus for you. On that, what I described as hiring manager self-service, I think you're absolutely right. You can't have, even if you can automate it, and Hung said in the comment, the automation tools are much better than they used to be for like outreach and things like that. However, you can't have, like, in a world like Andy's in particular, where it is such a niche focused type of people that you're being hired, you can't send out a message to 5 candidates and 4 of them get back to you and then you don't give them an answer. So there's a lot of jeopardy in all of that. Andrea, we're good, just a couple of minutes, but I know you're really good at talking fast when you need to.
Okay, so my key focus, I've been in the job almost 6 months now. So for me, looking at where all the issues are, and it all came down to, do you know what, if we improve our foundations, and that is the back to basics stuff, like let's bring in really strong, consistent recruitment processes so that people can follow it. You've got a structure, people can make decisions between good and great. It's all the stuff we talked about for ages, but through that you can build in hiring for potential, you can build in diversity, threading throughout all of it. You can get AI then sitting on top of it and actually enabling the recruiters to do a better job. So I'm all about foundations right now. Hoping to have all that in a really good place by middle of the year, and then we can start doing fun stuff on top of it.
Wonderful. Okay, look, like to thank Willem for joining and giving all those great information from the Ashby report. Andrea, Alexa, Andy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us, to give those really great insights. I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure everybody here has learned from all of you. I'm going to do something slightly different since Hung's not on screen, which is I'm going to finish on time as opposed to like 8 minutes over, which is what he normally does. So I'm going to be much more respectful of everyone's diaries. And this has been a really great show. I'm actually going to go back through the chat here on Crowdcast later because I couldn't follow everything, and I know there was a lot of stuff going on in there that I want to interact with. So thanks very much everybody for joining. Great to see you all, and I can't remember if I'm on or not next week, but if I am, see you next week. If not, Hung will see you next week. Cheers.
Thanks, Adam. Great job.